The Tokyo Sky Tree is the largest tree in all of Japan, being a symbol of collaboration because it is a collaborative effort between Nikkei Sekkei as well as three extremely prominent designers or architects, Sumikawa Kiichi, Ando Tadao, and Yoshino Shigeru. Not only this, but the height of the building, 634 meters, is actually a wordplay for the word Musashi, which means... Oh, sorry, hold on. Sorry, getting a call, 1 second. Yeah, what's up? Yeah, I'm talking about... Oh, it's an Enel video? Okay, yeah, I'll get to that soon. Yeah, sorry, my bad. Yeah, they're actually watching right now. 1 second. Yeah, yep, I'll see you. Yep, for sure. The Tokyo Sky Tree. The previous 96 minutes and 36 seconds of this video were cut out due to my manager telling me things like, it doesn't relate to the topic, and that's not a real tree. Well, thankfully, he doesn't know that bamboo is not a tree either. Bamboo was first... Purple Enel is one of the few leaders in the entire game that breaks the rules fundamentally. Under the rules of this game, your Dong deck consists of 6 cards, and then activate main once per turn. If it's your second turn or later, add up to 1 Dong card from your Dong deck and set it as active, and add up to 4 additional Dong cards and rest them. Then give up to 4 rested Dong cards to one of your characters. This leader effect enables 2 things fundamentally. 1, that you'll be at your maximum Dong of 6 regardless of if you're going first or second on turn 3, and 2, that you can consistently increase the power of your characters by 4,000 every turn to either increase the power of your attacks or the number of your attacks. Let's start with point 1. While 6 Dong can feel limiting on paper, in practice, thanks to some obscenely powerful characters and events, Enel can have more freedom than a standard deck. There's a simple reason for this. Though you only have 6 Dong on your field, thanks to your leader effect giving you back 5 Dong from turn 2, you effectively have 11 Dong at your disposal from turn 3. What? Regardless of if you go first or second, you'll always have 6 Dong on your third turn thanks to your leader effect. This means, of course, that you can play some exceptionally powerful 6 costs very consistently and very early, like, of course, the secret Enel that was printed in this set, a 6 cost 10,000 power immovable searcher that... Wait, what the hell? Is that allowed? Is that... Yeah, that's what it says. What the fuck? This Enel is spectacular in every way, and it's part of the reason why this deck is so powerful. It's a massive character that can come online extremely early on and cannot be dealt with under most circumstances. Not only this, but as it's a searcher, it can find any card you like, which greatly increases the consistency of the deck and expands the versatility of deck building, which we'll touch upon later. This card really has everything that you want, but alone doesn't quite make a deck, which is where I'd like to introduce you to the weenies. Weenies in this deck refer to 1 cost 2,000 power characters this deck is riddled with to supplement the second part of your leader effect. All of the weenies in this deck are card neutral while having a second effect that is subtle but very influential over the course of an entire game. Olm is generally the strongest weenie, giving up to one of your opponent's characters minus 1,000 power on attack. This can feel insignificant but vastly broadens the range of your events, making Olm the most problematic and one that you should heavily consider taking out if you're facing Enel. Satori, on the other hand, reorders the top 2 cards in your deck on attack. This effectively allows you to choose the card that you're going to draw at the start of the next turn, or cycle them to get 2 cards closer to the card that you actually want to find. Shida, a card that's very strong within the mirror, has Rush, being able to attack for at least 6,000 power immediately if played before you use your leader effect. Now, Shida does not have a lasting effect on the board, but instead poses a looming threat even if you've cleared the opponent's weenies. And lastly, although Gedatsu is one of the vassals of Enel, most Enelists do not run Gedatsu, as he generally only serves a purpose dead. Instead, what most decks run is the 1-cost Pudding, a searcher that checks the top 4 cards for an event, or Sanji, increasing your consistency overall by looking for specific events in your deck to make some of these really powerful combos. Having a 2,000 power character on the board enables you to hit for 6,000 power with ease thanks to your leader effect. So with this 6 cost Enel being able to hit for 10,000 power from a very early stage, as well as these 1 cost 2,000 power weenies that can hit for 6,000 power with your leader effect very early on, this deck is able to go both tall as well as wide. In isolation, if a deck is able to play in both of these styles, it's already very, very powerful. Some decks have tried to kind of do this in the past, like Red Zoro taking things like 8 cost Dragon, but Enel was not only a deck that was made to do both of these, it was made to do both of these at the exact same time, being able to develop a massive 6 cost 10,000 power body and also 1 cost 2,000 power characters that can hit for 6,000 power, allowing you to chip at the opponent's resources inch by inch with smaller attacks while also threatening to take away massive amounts of resources with larger attacks. This ability to do both, compounded with the versatility in both play as well as deck building, makes this deck as difficult to play as it is extremely powerful. If you're wanting to lock in and not only win but also just improve at the One Piece card game in general, I do think that Purple Enel is the best by far to do this because of the complexity and versatility of play. This video started out as a simple leader spotlight video just like my Red Blue Lucy video. But as I started to script this video more and more, I realized how impossible it is to actually explain how to play Enel, and I don't feel like anyone's really done a great job yet so far online. So that's why I've decided to not only make this video, but to also put out a new Metafy guide, which is the culmination of 1500 games of Enel between me as well as someone that I'm adding to my team, Deva. We've been working on the guide that's now on Metafy for you to check out in the description, and I think that, honestly, you did a lot of the heavy lifting for me, but I think it's really, really good, so make sure to check that out. And as a thank you, and also because this video is sponsored by SleeveChief, I have a couple of things for you to take back because you are unfortunately going back to Australia.
Yes.
I have, first of all, deck box color, very large deck box. You can see your leader through it, which is also pretty cute. Also, it's sold out right now, so if you want that, maybe wait a little bit. It is going to be restocked.
Wow. Oh, it's got a very strong magnet. That's really nice, yeah, actually.
And speaking of very strong magnets, I have a very, very strong magnet on a slightly stereotypical China to-go box.
That's amazing.
SleeveChief Elite Series sleeves, Eclipse black sleeve, Void purple sleeves for you for your Yu-Gi-Oh endeavors, Snow White sleeves, Deep Blue sleeves. All of these, by the way, have 100 sleeves in them, so now you have 8 decks worth of sleeves in here. And also,
Perfect.
by the way, I see that your hands are pretty light, so I have a couple more. I actually have one more thing for you. You are a Yu-Gi-Oh player, so
yes,
I thought that I would get something completely unrelated to Yu-Gi-Oh, which is Egyptian-inspired male A.
That is incredibly Egyptian-inspired melee. Probably should have led with that one. So when we do a bit of an Enel introduction?
If you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Enel is a truly unique and complicated deck, which is why we thought it was important to put out a guide, even if it was relatively late compared to everyone else's guides. And although I understand that $25 is a lot, if you are willing to spend that, I do promise that you'll get your money's worth, because we really put in all that we know about Enel into this guide, and I hope that you guys enjoy it. Not only that, but we're also doing a giveaway on this video in tandem with the release of this guide. If you are subscribed to this channel, as well as like and retweet, as well as follow my Twitter that's in the link in the description, you are now entered into the giveaway to win one of these 10 Kumamoto exclusive Don cards. Now these cards are really hard to get even in Japan, so they were not cheap, which is why we're splitting up one set into 10 winners. But still, 10 of you are going to win this Kumamoto Don set if you do all the things that are on the screen, and the winners will be drawn on May 4th. And so now that you understand the characters that fundamentally build the Enel deck, let's talk about the core of the list as a whole. While the deck has lots of styles and tech cards, these cards will generally remain the same throughout all of them. And with this set of cards as a core, there are currently 3 popular versions of Enel that exist and have different strengths and ways to play the game. Now you may think that by changing just a few cards on the deck, you can't technically justify calling it a completely new version. But for a deck like Enel, changing just a few cards is going to significantly change not only the way that you play out the game, but the pace that you play the game at. Because something like the Porche version wants to play the game extremely aggressively, whereas some other versions like Pink Maxing, you have a little bit more time within the game. First, the standard version, the deck as Bandai intended it. This version plays many 6-cost Enels, including things like the SR Enel, which lots of decks have been cutting recently, and overwhelming the opponent in their sheer power. Compared to some other potential cards in this slot, the 6-cost Enel can feel slightly underwhelming, being a blocker that requires you to throw away a card. However, let's not forget that it's still an immovable 6-cost 10,000 power character, and in some matchups where you do want to consistently play these large bodies in a row, having more large attackers is exactly what you need. This version has one of the scariest lethal ranges, as well as not only are your characters larger in size, but the 6-cost super rare Enel's activate main is not once per turn, allowing you to attach 6 dong to your leader. Use the SR Enel's effect 5 times in a row and attach a total of 11 dong extremely easily. Though this does basically burn your entire hand, if you're going for lethal, that doesn't really matter. The second list, and one that's had its phase both in the east and the west, is the Porche build. And yes, sorry, that's how I pronounce Porche, because that's how you call it in Japanese. This version is much lower to the ground and aggressive, using the Porche to expand your board further by playing the 5,000 power Porche alongside things like Holy. This list is the definition of a high roll deck. Porche and Holy are at their strongest on turn 2, and unless you dedicate your build to this concept, it's difficult to find an opportunity to play these cards later on. That being said, if you do manage to play Ohm into Porche and Holy into the 6-cost Searcher Secret Rare Enel, there really isn't that many things that the opponent can do to you in any matchup. This Porche combo is especially potent into the Mirror, which is a large reason why people were picking this build until the new version was created by the West for the first time, the Senor Pink build. Caution: when pink maxing, be sure not to dazzle your opponent too hard with your incredibly handsome and iridescent glow. Being too handsome may stun your opponent and give you the timing to both metaphorically and physically devour your opponent's cards. Just be careful of this if you don't want to be rule sharked for being far too handsome. Enel as a deck, though fundamentally straightforward, playing 1 cost early on and 6 costs after, has a lot of complexity and flexibility in the turn-by-turn decisions thanks to the events that you have at your disposal. The events at Enel's disposal are all frighteningly good and versatile, which is what's going going to end up separating good players from great players. Senior Pink, if you were to rephrase exactly what the card says once it's resolved, is essentially just a 4-cost 6,000 power character that on play draws any event that you like, so long as that event is in your trash, so it makes it very easy to pull off some extremely potent combos. However, it's hard to explain the power of Senior Pink without explaining the events at its disposal, so let's now talk about what truly separates Enel from the rest: Mamaragang. This super rare event has 2 effects. Its main effect is Dom -2, draw 1 card, and then rest up to one of your opponent's characters with 5,000 power or less. The counter effect, up to one of your leader or character cards gains plus 1,000 power during this battle. Then if you have 6 or less Dome cards on your field, draw 1 card. This card is a hate crime to all emu players, but is also just in general pretty overtuned. Similar to how Gungam Giant was broken due to the card being card neutral counter, this card is also a free +1k at any point should the Enel decide not to use the equally, if not more powerful main effect to either rest one of the opponent's blockers and go for the game, or rest one of the opponent's characters and enable Enel to hit into them and control the board in this manner. Oh, and also one more thing about Mamaragang is that although the counter effect is extremely powerful and you're going to be tempted to want to use it on anything that's a 5,000 power attack, really you should be using this to use on your main effect, especially if it's a matchup where you think that resting effects are going to be important. Don't let the shiny cardboard tempt you, because although the counter effect is free, the main effect is just so powerful that you generally should be using this instead for the most part. We'll talk about combos using this card later in this video, but let's first talk about the other events. Vari, Erutoru, and Lightning Beast Kitten all have differing main effects but share the same counter effect, giving any card named Enel 2,000 power during this battle. This enables Enel to only run a few copies of actual 2k counters like the Sanji to make the total number of 2ks in your deck 12. This on paper sounds very crazy and is very reminiscent of a deck like Red Rayleigh, but does have one key difference, making these counter events a give and a take. Yes, they're 2,000 counters with a pretty powerful effect, but they can only protect Enel, making cards like Reiju and Holy vulnerable to attacks that are 1,000 higher than their current power. Keep this in mind when you're fighting Enel, as Reiju can very easily die to an 8,000 power attack, making these characters feel a lot scarier than they actually are. Lightning Beast Kitten has the main effects to Dome -1, and then if your leader is Enel, draw 1 card and give up to one of the opponent's characters -1,000 power during this turn. This can be a simple tool to take down some higher power characters, but can also prove very helpful in tandem with Mamaragang, reducing the opponent's character's power into that 5,000 power range to be able to now rest it, similar to Olm. While Olm on the board is always going to present a threat to the opponent's 6,000 power characters, a card like Lightning Beast Kitten is much harder to account for because it can come out immediately and use its effect on the same turn that it's activated. Still, when doing so, you are going to be losing a 2,000 counter from your hand, so you have to understand the give and the take in this situation. Vari, like Kitten, is also a 0-cost event that has the main effect to -1 Dong, and if your leader is Enel, you draw 1 card, but this time, one of your characters gains 2 costs until the end of your opponent's end phase. This card is not as universally useful as other cards within this deck, but this card can prove helpful in some more annoying matchups such as green decks that can attempt to lock your 6-cost Enels with things like that 3-cost Luna. If you use Vari on your 6-cost Enel to make it an 8-cost, then you can get yourself out of that range and ensure that your characters are going to be able to restand. And lastly, the third of the Enel 2,000 counter events is Erutoru. Erutoru has the same activation cost, being a main effect that does Dome -1, and if your leader is Enel, you give up to one of your leaders or characters plus 1,000 power during this turn, then KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 3,000 power or less. This is the only event that was made for Enel that doesn't actually draw a card when it's used, but still has 2 effects on its main effect. This card can be used on your lethal turn to extend the range of your lethal, and returning a Dome card which you can subsequently get back with your leader effect, effectively just giving you free 1,000 power. Or you can also use this card to take out some of the opponent's characters, whether it's a small character or combo it with power reduction to take out some larger characters. All 3 of these events have a mildly powerful effect that you have no problem including in the list due to the fact that they act basically as 2,000 counters, but the last event printed for Enel does not have such a counter effect. Lightning Dragon, a 0-cost event with the main effect to Dome -1, draw 1 card, and then up to one of your opponent's rested characters with 6,000 power or less will not become active on the opponent's next refresh phase. So wait, Enel has power reduction like red, but also freezing effects like green? No wonder this deck's so broken. Plain and simply, this card is just great all around, and I wouldn't be surprised if it would be adopted in other decks that aren't Enel later on in purple. A large majority of the effects that Enel has at his disposal hinge on the power of the opponent's characters, which is why, aside from all these dedicated Enel events, Enel tends to run one or both of the following cards: Gamma Knife and Divine Departure. Gamma Knife is a very simple event. It's a 2-cost which reduces one of your Dong cards to give one of the opponent's characters minus 5,000 power. 2 Dong for minus 5,000 power is actually similar to Ice Age in the amount of value that you get for so cheap. Being able to be played alongside cards like Senor Pink, Reiju, or Frankie on the same turn makes it very easy to play this card to reduce the opponent's board while developing your own. However, unlike all of Enel's events, this does actually end up becoming a brick in your hand, actually costing 2 Dong while not having a counter effect, making it a brick unlike Divine Departure, which has a more costly main effect, costing 5 in total to reduce the opponent's character by 8,000 power, but in turn has the counter effect to be able to get rid of other bricks in your hand. On paper, Gamma Knife seems mathematically just better. 2 Dong for minus 5,000 power versus 5 Dong for minus 8,000 power. However, these cards are actually very different in the way that they can be used. The reason why Gamma Knife is strong is because of the fact that you can play it alongside these 4-cost characters. However, if your build is not centering around these 4-cost characters, then you don't really have good timings to play Gamma Knife and instead should just opt for Divine Departure because it'll fill out your full Dong curve much better. All of these events used together can create some extremely powerful combos in the purple Enel deck. A very relatable comparison for my Western audience is that Enel is actually very similar to playing Mahjong. Your events play similar to Mahjong tiles where you're trying to put together specific combos and specific sequences of these tiles or cards to be able to surgically dismantle your opponent. And while there are lots of different combos that can be good in various different places, particularly outside of the meta, 2 main combos you're going to be using within this meta are ones that I've coined Mama Dragon as well as Gamaragang. Mama Dragon is a combination of any power reduction, whether it be Ohm or Lightning Beast Kitin, with, well, Mamaragang and Lightning Dragon. This allows you to forcefully lock one of the opponent's characters, denying it the ability to refresh before it had the opportunity to attack. This is especially effective against cards with strong on-attack effects like Cavendish or scary dogs like Holy in the Mirror. Gamaragang is a combo using, no way, Gamma Knife and Mamaragang. This combo, on the other hand, is great versus large bodies thanks to the more potent power reduction of Gamma Knife. Reducing a card with 10,000 power or less, such as the 7-cost Sabo or the 6-cost Enel within the Mirror, into that 5,000 power range to rest it allows you to harass it or even take out the opponent's characters with ease, once again, before the opponent has had the ability to attack. This creates a suffocating game loop where once Enel's ahead on the board, it can be very difficult to grapple back control, as Gamaragang and Mama Dragon can both be used on the same turn that you're developing characters. Part of the reason why you generally don't see decks centering around 7,000 or 8,000 power characters within this meta, or even tech cards such as Roshinante and Law, both stem from Enel. Enel has 2 specific combos that can deal with these types of stat lines very, very well, making it actually very difficult to justify adding these types of cards within your deck. Firstly, let's talk about 7,000 power stat lines. Now, once that 7,000 power stat line is rested, whether it's by the opponent or your own Mamaragang, then with one single Gamma Knife, that's now 2,000 power. And 2,000 power, well, that's perfectly within the range of your 2,000 power characters. Now, on the other hand, 8,000 power characters, well, what do we do about that? Well, 8,000 power characters, 8 minus 5 with that one Gamma Knife, well, that's perfectly in range of El Thor now, meaning that there is absolutely no way that you can play around these combos that Enel has infinite potential to access, thanks to cards such as Senor Pink. This deck's standard curve will be mostly the same from game to game and matchup to matchup, with minimal variance, but explodes in potential from turn 4. If you're going first, you'll want to play a 1-cost on turn 1. On turn 2, assuming you've played a Vassal and not Pudding, you'll have 2 Dong. You can use these Dong to expand more 1-costs or develop a mid-range body like Porje or Holy, using your leader effect to attack with your 1-cost and start the next turn with 6 Dong. On turn 3, you'll want to establish the 6-cost Enel, prioritizing the Secret Rare Searcher, before finally, on turn 4, you have a plethora of options that all stem from how you want to use your events. The beauty and power of Enel stems from the fact that he's able to have these responses so consistently and so cheaply out of hand whenever he needs them. He can set up responses turns in advance of when the opponent actually poses the issue, being able to efficiently clear the opponent's board while simultaneously developing his board permanently. Every single turn, Enel's going to be playing a character, and he also has the option to be able to take out your board as well, meaning that there's going to be extremely flippy board states where you feel like you're in the lead, but then all of a sudden Enel has an extra 1 or 2 characters on the board and your board is gone. And so this brings us to the end of the video once again. I hope that you guys enjoyed this one. I hope you learned a little bit about Enel, though it is rather basic because the difficulty of Enel doesn't necessarily come from playing the general curve, as we mentioned in this video. Very, very simple standard curve, but understanding exactly how you want to tackle certain situations is going to be the upper echelon of Enel play. Regardless, I hope that you learned something from this video, and if you want to know a little bit more, make sure to check out my Metafy article down in the description below. Thank you guys so much for your support. As always, have lots more videos coming along, and also, oh my god, wait, I should have said this earlier. I know my sub count isn't at 33,000 yet, but I'm in the process of leaving my job. So that's great. But anyways, once again, there's a giveaway going on right now, so make sure to subscribe to the channel, check out the tweet in the description below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. I don't know why I forgot my outro.